and can I say how much I agree with the main thesis, with the main arguments in this book. I think it's very important that we talk openly about United Front activity pursued by China, just as we used to about United Front activity pursued by Russia, which seems to be happening again under the Novichok regime in Moscow. I want to talk, first of all, briefly about what's happened in Hong Kong, secondly, about why I think it's happened, and thirdly, about what I think we should do about it. What's happened in Hong Kong is known to us all. Hong Kong has prospered mightily with a free economy, with free speech, with the rule of law and an independent judiciary and all the freedoms and liberties we associate with an open society, and as well with civil society, vibrant and extremely active right across the board. And what has happened in Hong Kong under the Beijing regime is because of Xi Jinping's obsession with the threat represented by liberal democratic values to China. We've seen the biggest assault on freedom and liberty in any city, I think, in the 21st century, certainly as big as anywhere else. And what the Chinese have done is to destroy all those elements, or set out to destroy all those elements, which have made Hong Kong so successful and have given citizens of Hong Kong such an admirable place to live in. When I was governor of Hong Kong, my main critic was a diplomat called Sir Percy Craddock. And Percy Craddock used to say very openly that about the Chinese leadership, he would say, well, they're thuggish dictators, but they're men of their word. Well, we know now that at least part of that is true. They're certainly thuggish dictators, as we can see, as Ben Rogers and others have pointed out, in Xinjiang, where the Chinese Communist Party is engaged with something which pretty well amounts to genocide in that territory against the Muslims. What they're doing in Hong Kong is to destroy what was promised in Hong Kong, a high degree of autonomy, one country, two systems, and they're doing that in a way which I must say will give Taiwan even greater room for thought, because I'm sure that what they're doing in Hong Kong, they would like to do one day in Taiwan. Why is it happening? Hong Kong went pretty well for about 10 years after the handover in 1997. Then Xi Jinping came to power, and I think Xi Jinping and some of his colleagues were absolutely obsessively concerned about the threat to communist power in China, represented by globalization, represented by the internet, represented by urbanization. And they set out from the beginning, probably before 2013, probably 2011, when the Sixth Party Plenum produced a document advocating greater control of culture, education, religion, civil society, and so on. They've set out to assault all those reflections of liberal democracy, which they think represent some sort of threat to Chinese communist leadership. We know very well that the main concern of the Chinese Communist Party isn't the welfare of the people, isn't this or that foreign policy objective, it's to hold on to power. And to a considerable extent, Hong Kong represents all those things, all those elements, all those values which China is nervous about, whether it's free speech, whether it's a recognition of the universality of human rights, whether it's the determination to provide an education which is open, which teaches people what's going on rather than what the Chinese Communist Party wants them to think. What China has put in place is an example, I suppose the biggest so far, of technological totalitarianism. And I think the only way we will be able to ensure that our own values are robust in protecting us against that is by working together. I don't think, and it's particularly, of course, relevant to what's happening in Hong Kong, I don't think the Chinese Communist Party is brilliant. I think this decade may represent what's called peak China, but China has awful problems to deal with, whether it's drought, whether it's demography, whether it's debt, and all sorts of other issues as well. And I think what's very important, both in relation to Hong Kong and in relation to dealing with China as a whole, is for liberal democracies to stand up for what we believe in, and to call out examples of united front activity which seeks to undermine it. I think in particular we need to work together. We need, as parliamentary democracies, to work together. I hope parliamentary committees in each country will follow what's happening in Hong Kong. I hope we'll support those organizations, human rights groups and so on, like Hong Kong Watch, like Amnesty, which follow what's happening in Hong Kong. I hope that we'll support the pressure for UN rapporteurs. I think it's very important to provide lifelines for young Hong Kongers with bursaries at our universities in Anglophone countries. I think all those things are absolutely vital. But above all, we've got to recognize that unless we stand up for the values which we feel so strongly about, they'll be steadily and stealthily undermined by those, for example, who in the education sector believe in China in what Stalin called engineering of the soul. We've got to make sure that that doesn't happen in our Western societies, and we've got to make sure that those who are part of this united front hostility to liberal democracy are exposed, as they are in the book which we're talking about today.